Tobacco is Lancaster County's most valuable cash crop. It earns 5 times more per acre than corn. And every August, Amish women spend days cutting, spearing, and hanging it by hand in temperatures that reach 100 degrees. Here is exactly what that looks like from sunrise to sundown. Lancaster County's most valuable crop. Lancaster County, Pennsylvania grows tobacco on approximately 7,000 acres of farmland. The crop generates roughly $30 million annually and has been grown in the region since colonial times. Tobacco earns 5 times more per acre than corn. For an Amish family with a modest farm, a few acres of tobacco can mean the difference between financial stability and a genuinely difficult year. The county developed its own unique variety called Pennsylvania 41, grown primarily for cigar filler and chewing tobacco. A second variety called Maryland 609 is blended with southern burley for cigarettes. For Amish families who depend on the land for their income, tobacco is not a luxury crop. It is the crop that pays the bills. Why Amish women do this work? Tobacco harvest is not men's work or women's work. It is everyone's work. When the tobacco is ready, the entire family goes to the field. Husbands, wives, teenage daughters, sons, and children old enough to carry a water jug all participate. Women play a central role that outsiders rarely acknowledge. They cut alongside the men. They spear alongside the men. They climb into the barn and hang laths alongside the men. The harvest window is narrow. Tobacco cut in the field must reach the barn before rain arrives. A single rain event can damage or destroy weeks of work. There is no time to sort tasks by gender. The women who show up for tobacco harvest in August are not helping. They are essential. Before the sun rises. The harvest day begins before 4 in the morning. The women cook breakfast for the entire crew first. Eggs, scrapple, oatmeal, and coffee. After breakfast, they dress for the field. Long, plain dresses and head coverings even in the August heat. The Ordnung does not allow short sleeves regardless of temperature. They add layers because covered skin provides some protection against nicotine in the tobacco leaves. Some tie cloth around their wrists and forearms, where leaves will brush constantly. By 5 in the morning, the crew is in the field. The tobacco plants stand 6 feet tall, their broad leaves still wet with morning dew. Wet leaves mean higher nicotine absorption through the skin. The women know this and begin working anyway. Cutting stalks in the heat. Each tobacco plant is cut individually at the base of the stalk using a short, sharp blade or shears. The plant does not fall cleanly. It must be guided down by hand so it drops in the same direction as the previous plants, creating an orderly row of fallen stalks that makes spearing easier. An experienced cutter works in a steady rhythm. Cut, guide, step, cut, guide, step, down the row without stopping. The pace must be maintained because the cut plants lying in the sun can only stay there for a limited time. The leaves wilt slightly in the sun, which actually makes spearing easier, but if they lie too long, the leaves begin to burn and the quality drops. The women cut as fast as they can while the temperature climbs. By 8 in the morning, it is already above 80 degrees. By 10, it is pushing 90. The air between the tall rows of tobacco plants traps heat and moisture. There is no breeze at plant level. The women sweat through their clothing within the first hour. They do not stop. Stopping is not an option when the weather window is open and the crop is ready. Spearing onto laths. After cutting, the stalks are speared onto wooden laths. A lath is a 5-foot-long wooden stick with a sharpened metal spear attached to one end. The spearer slides the metal spear point over the end of the lath, holds the lath upright with one hand with the spear pointing away from the body, lifts a cut tobacco stalk with the other hand, and drives it down over the spear point and onto the lath. Each lath holds 5 to 6 stalks. The technique sounds simple. It is not. The stalks are heavy and unwieldy. The spear is sharp. The motion of driving a heavy stalk downward onto a sharp metal point while keeping the lath stable requires strength, coordination, and attention. A slip means a serious puncture wound to the hand or forearm. The women who spear tobacco do it hundreds of times per day. Their hands develop a specific callus pattern from gripping the lath. Their forearms and wrists absorb the repeated impact of the stalk hitting the wood. By midday, each loaded lath weighs 40 to 50 pounds. That weight must be lifted, carried, and loaded onto a wagon without dropping it. Loading the wagon. The loaded laths are laid in rows in the field until enough accumulate to fill a wagon. A horse-drawn wagon moves slowly down the field rows, stopping while workers lift the heavy laths and stack them carefully. The stacking must be done correctly. Laths stacked carelessly shift during transport and damage the leaves. The leaves are the product. Damaged leaves mean reduced quality and reduced payment at auction. The women lift laths from the ground and pass them to workers on the wagon, who arrange them in tight, even layers. A full wagon carries a significant load. The horses pull it slowly to keep the cargo stable. Someone rides on the wagon to prevent laths from shifting on uneven ground. The wagon moves from the field to the tobacco barn in a steady rotation. Empty wagons return to the field. Full wagons go to the barn. This rotation continues all day. The women in the field keep cutting and spearing to stay ahead of the wagon. The women at the barn keep hanging to prevent a backlog. The operation requires constant coordination and constant physical effort from every person involved. Into the tobacco barn. The tobacco barn is a tall wooden structure with ventilated sides that allow air to flow through the hanging crop during curing. The ventilation that makes curing possible also means the barn provides almost no shade benefit. The air inside moves sluggishly on hot days. The temperature inside a tobacco barn during August harvest can exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit under the tin roof. The wagon drives directly into the barn through wide double doors. Workers inside begin unloading immediately. The laths must be passed upward from worker to worker and hung on horizontal rails that run the length of the barn at multiple heights. The lowest rails are easy. A worker standing on the wagon bed can reach them without difficulty. As the lower rails fill, the laths must go higher. Workers climb onto the wagon sides, then onto boards laid across higher rails, moving upward into the hottest part of the barn as the day progresses. The women climb too. There is no assignment that keeps them on the ground if hands are needed above. They climb in their long dresses, passing 40-pound laths upward to workers above them and receiving laths from workers below. Hanging under the tin roof, the highest rails in the tobacco barn sit within feet of the tin roof. On a 100-degree August day, the tin roof radiates heat downward onto the workers below it. The temperature at the top of the barn is not merely uncomfortable, it is dangerous. Workers at the highest level operate in conditions that industrial safety standards would prohibit. There is no forced ventilation, no cooling system, no ice water dispensed at regular intervals by a safety officer. The women working at height in the barn drink water when they can get it and keep moving. Stopping to rest at the top of a tobacco barn in August, heat means sitting in the hottest possible location with no air movement. Moving is actually preferable to stopping. The physical rhythm of lifting, hanging, and reaching keeps blood flowing and provides a kind of psychological momentum that makes the work feel manageable when standing still would make the heat overwhelming. The women pass laths from hand to hand in a chain that stretches from the wagon floor to the top rail. Each woman in the chain is responsible for her section of the pass. If anyone breaks the chain, the entire operation slows. The women at the top, closest to the tin roof, work in the worst conditions and carry the heaviest responsibility. Green tobacco sickness. Green tobacco sickness is nicotine poisoning caused by skin absorption. When workers handle tobacco leaves, especially wet leaves, nicotine passes through the skin directly into the bloodstream. The symptoms are unmistakable: nausea, vomiting, severe headache, dizziness, weakness, cold sweats followed by hot sweats. In serious cases, difficulty breathing and loss of consciousness. The condition is documented and recognized by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration as a genuine occupational hazard. It is not rare among tobacco harvesters. It is common. The morning dew on tobacco leaves dramatically increases nicotine absorption because the moisture allows the nicotine to penetrate skin more efficiently than dry leaf contact alone. The women who begin cutting before sunrise are handling wet leaves from the first moment they enter the field. Their covered skin provides some protection, But no amount of clothing completely prevents exposure when a worker spends 8 to 12 hours in direct contact with tobacco plants. Children working in the harvest face greater risk because their lower body weight means the same amount of absorbed nicotine represents a higher dose relative to their size. Amish women who feel symptoms of green tobacco sickness during harvest rarely stop working. The crop must come in. They push through the nausea and the headaches and continue cutting, spearing, and hanging until the day's work is done or their body forces them to stop. The debate inside the community. Not all Amish agree that tobacco should be grown. The debate is real, and it runs through Lancaster County and beyond. The core tension is straightforward. Tobacco is a product that causes serious illness and death when used as intended. The Amish grow it almost exclusively to sell. They do not smoke it themselves in most cases, but they profit from its sale to people who will use it to harm their health. Some Amish ministers have preached against tobacco farming. They argue that profiting from a product known to cause cancer and addiction conflicts with Amish values of caring for the body as a temple of God and treating neighbors with love and respect. When Lancaster County Amish established a new settlement in Park County, Indiana in the 1990s, the new community voted to ban tobacco farming entirely and made that ban part of their ordnung. Other Amish defend tobacco farming on practical grounds. It has been grown in Lancaster County since colonial times. It provides income that keeps families on the land. The stripping and sorting in autumn creates genuine family time and community bonding. The crop itself is not the sin. What buyers do with it is between them and God. This debate has not been resolved. Different districts hold different positions. Some families have quietly stopped growing tobacco without making a public statement. Others continue because the financial reality of farming without it is genuinely difficult. The women who harvest it in 100-degree heat rarely weigh in on the theology. They simply do the work that keeps the family solvent. Conclusion. What happens when 12 Amish women harvest tobacco in 100-degree heat is a story about work that most people will never see and few would choose to do. It begins before sunrise with a large breakfast cooked for the crew. It moves to the field where women in long dresses and head coverings cut 6-foot tobacco stalks in rising heat and humidity. It continues through the spearing, the loading, the wagon transport, and the climb into a barn that bakes under a tin roof in August. The women work at the highest and hottest points of that barn, passing 40-pound laths upward in a chain that does not stop until the wagon is empty. They absorb nicotine through their skin from the first wet leaf they touch in the morning until the last dry stalk they hang at dusk. Some develop green tobacco sickness. Most push through it. All of them finish the day exhausted in ways that are difficult to describe to someone who has never worked agricultural labor in summer heat. The tobacco they harvest will cure for 2 to 3 months in that barn. In November, it will be stripped and bundled. In December, it will sell at auction. The money it generates will pay property taxes, buy feed for the horses, cover school expenses for the children, and contribute to the community fundraisers that support neighbors in need. Whether growing tobacco conflicts with Amish values is a question the community debates and has not fully resolved. But the women who do this work are not debating theology in the field. They are cutting, spearing, loading, climbing, and hanging in 100-degree heat because the crop is ready and the family needs what it pays. That is the complete answer to what happens. Everything else is philosophy.